And maybe most of the things we do are actually good. But it's in those little spots where we talked about this from DeYoung's book of this idea of a sled. And the more that you go down that same path, the harder it is to get out of that rut. And so it's just this idea of identifying these various, we talked about the capital vices, and maybe spots in our life where we need to try to jump out of that rut, right, and cultivate some new paths. With that, we've talked about several different things, and I just want to trying to wrap this all up toward the end. And it was Aristotle. As Aristotle talked about ethics, was that character is a result of habits. And I think that's true enough. I mean, I think when we think about that, the things that we just do over and over again then become automatic and then become part of our character. And so this is like times like this when we look and we say, okay, is our character formed the right way, or is there something that's formed the wrong way that we need to change? Okay? So we've looked at this list. We're not going to go through each one of these, but these are the list of the virtues and vices, and what we call capital virtues. Some are theological virtues, and then cardinal virtues, which are on that list. And we don't need to dive into that whole. But then the capital vices. The capital vices. So we've done a couple of things here, and I'm trying to remember. I didn't mark up my notes, so if I have my slides out of order, then we'll fix it. But there's a couple of scriptures that I want us to look at as we close out this session, this little series. And the first one's going to be in Matthew chapter 7. So if you want to make your way to Matthew chapter 7, that's where we're going to go. And as we get there, what we've done with this, and this is really, it's an old Christian tradition, I mean, way back, of this idea of life as a tree. We've kind of thought about it that way, I hope. And what we're looking for is a way that in which we do humanity right? We flourish would be the word that the ancients would use, a flourishing life. And the difference is, so all right, let's back it up and do it this way. So we think about the tree as as life, and the tree as being the ones of the virtues or vices. And then the leaves coming off of that are the various actions and character that come from that. So if you think of the tree as the vices would be the branches, and then the sins that come off of that would be the leaves. That make sense? Right? That's kind of what the fruit that it bears. The same way, if it's a good tree, right, is that it bears good fruit, which we're going to talk about that in just a second. And it's not just enough. It's not just enough to get rid of the particular vices, because if we're right in thinking about it this way, and I think we are, that at the root of all of the vices is one common sin, and that's pride. Pride is the root of all of it. And so it doesn't do much good. Doesn't do as good, let's put it that way. It does some good, but we're looking to try to do the ultimate good of just getting rid of some of the vices and not messing with the root. You know what I mean? We got to get the root right and to root out pride. So pride is just that part of us that wants to substitute something else, and usually whatever it is we decide, in the place of God. And that leads into pretty bad spots, right? So if you look at the tree on the left, you see a flourishing tree. If you look at the tree on the right, you see a dead one. Because that's where the vicious life leads, is toward death. And so the object is to get rid of the things at the root to make it go well. Am I making sense? Are you with me? Okay. All right. This is one we've talked about before. It's from the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 7. Beware of the false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they're ravenous wolves. You'll recognize them by their fruit. Are grapes gathered from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? So every healthy tree bears good fruit. Diseased tree bears bad fruit. A healthy tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a diseased tree cannot bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Thus you'll recognize them by their fruits. And there's a whole bunch wrapped up in this little section that Jesus talks about here. One of them is that sometimes we can dress up life enough to make it look like we're virtuous. You agree with that? Okay. I don't know if you've ever heard this term. I'm sure you have, because we see this a lot, by the way, right now. And I don't. This is not something brand new, by the way. I think it's just a new way of referring to it. But have you heard the term virtue signaling? Anybody ever heard that term? Okay. And what that just means is that we make sure that everybody knows that we're virtuous. Right? We have to say the right things. We have to. If you think about it in terms of social media and the way that works, is that we have to share the right things and we have to comment on the right things and comment well on the right things, and so everybody knows how virtuous we are. Right? And that's all good and fine, I think, to some point, as long as we are virtuous. But sometimes we just want to look that way. And we have the people that Jesus talks about here. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they're ravenous wolves. So is it possible? Is it possible for us to look the part but not be the part? And the answer to that is unfortunately yes, it is. And we can get away with it. That's the worst part, right? We can actually get away with it. With one notable exception. Is that God knows the difference. So, let's go to another little, we're not going to read this, we're just going to talk about it. There's a confusing little passage sometimes. And it's in Mark 11. So if you want to make your way over there, you can. I'm just going to kind of talk through it more than we're going to read it. But Mark 11 is the final week of Jesus' life. He's staying in Bethany. They come into Jerusalem, and he sees a fig tree. There's a fig tree. Leaves all over it. He goes up to it, and there's no fruit on it. And he curses it. Goes on into the way Mark lays this out. He goes on into Jerusalem. He clears out the temple. Goes back to Bethany. The next day they come by and it's dead, and they're all amazed by this. Well, the confusing part is Mark says in there in the text of going, and it's not the season for figs. It's not the season for ripe figs. But it is season for the small ones to be on there. And if there's no small ones, there'll be no big ones, right? That's fairly obvious. And the point of the story is, right, the point that Mark is trying to make is really specifically about the temple, but I think we can also see the application for us as that we can look like we are very, very healthy, look like we're bearing fruit, look like everything's good, but Jesus gets up close and goes, I don't think so. Right? I don't think so. And so there is some seriousness to this of actual serious reflection of looking, of going, okay, as we think about the 7 capital vices, do I find myself down that path? Do I find myself in that particular rut? Now, I do want to say this. What we're talking about is the sin habit that becomes a part of who we are. Okay? It's not that I don't know how to say this and say it well, but we're going to give it a shot and see what happens. Let's take greed. It's not that it's not a huge deal. It is a big deal, and that's where it gets fuzzy for me. That we give in to greed on occasion. Right? If something happens, we handle it wrong. Anybody been there? Happened to me, right? It's not that, but that's the beginning of it. What happens is that becomes habituated over and over time to where we're actually what would be referred to as a greedy person. Everything gets looked at through that lens. Does that make sense? All right? So it does do for us to pay attention to the things that are at the root and the various habits. I do like this, that a good tree can't bear bad fruit, and a bad tree can't bear good fruit, which gets us back to what DeYoung seems to be talking about, what the early Desert Fathers talk about, is of going, let's make sure the root's healthy. And so that's where this idea of cultivating the virtues, getting rid of the vices comes from. Now, I want to spend more time on this one. John chapter 15. And I think this one is really gets to the heart of what we've been doing. John 15. This is during that final conversation that Jesus has with his disciples. It's from the upper room until the garden. All of these things that he's talking about with the 11 that still remain. Here in chapter 15, I am the vine, I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes it away. Every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. Already you're clean because of the word that I've spoken to you. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. I'm the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me you can do nothing. If anyone does not abide in me, he is thrown away like a branch and withers. The branches are gathered, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you abide in me and my words abide in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be given, it will be done for you. By this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit, and so prove to be my disciples. Excuse me. He goes on from there, but it's this section that I want us to kind of to zero in on. A couple of things that we see, or at least one thing that we see as having in common with what he talks about in Matthew chapter 7 is the result of the trees that bear no fruit. Right? Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. That's what he says in the Sermon on the Mount. Here it is. The branch that does not remain attached to me withers and dies, and they're gathered and thrown into the fire. So that's not the part we want. With me? None of us want that part. Okay, good. But this really gets to the heart of what does this mean to look like to get the root right? And I think this is where we find it, was Jesus going, abide in me. Right? This is the attachment. And there's a whole bunch that's wrapped up in this. From Jesus starting of, I'm the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Right? The easy one is, the branch that doesn't bear fruit, we get rid of. The branch that does bear fruit, he leaves alone and everything's fine. No, that's not what it says. Right? Every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it bears more fruit, which is what we've been talking about for the last several weeks. This idea of pruning. You don't have to agree with me on this, by the way, but I think that's what he's getting at when he says in verse 3, already you are clean because of the word that I've spoken to you. And I take this to tie into what he's talking about with God pruning. Right? So, yeah, we got time. All right. So there's 11 of them still around. Right? Judas is gone. And these are the 11 that he's called. Now we know some for sure, some we don't. But let's think about it. So we know that part of them were fishermen. And what are they doing now? They've given that up and they're following Jesus. We have a tax collector who's given that up and is following Jesus. We have others that have given up things and following Jesus. Some of those things in life of their life before have been pruned away. Can we say it that way? That are no longer there. They have followed and watched the way Jesus deals with people. They were shocked that he talked to a Samaritan woman. But it shows what it is that Jesus thinks of people. And so their idea of who's in and who's out, how about that, has been pruned away from what they thought before. I mean, all of these things that you can go down through the list of all these changing events in their life, that this is who we were before, but now that's been changed, if you will, that part of my life's been cut off so that I bear more fruit because I'm focused in the right direction. That make more sense? Yes? No? Maybe? Okay. All right. You can do nothing, he says, unless you remain in me. Nothing that will last. Because we can't sustain it on our own. So we're attached to him. And the other part we're going to talk about we're going to hit a little harder in a few minutes, is the communal aspect of this. You can do nothing unless you're attached to me. We can't do this on our own. When it comes to cultivating the virtues and eliminating the, we can cooperate. But we cannot do all of this on our own. God has given us the Spirit to remain in us, to dwell in and among us for this purpose, the transforming work of the Holy Spirit. We don't do this on our own. Not only do we not do it apart from him, I think it's incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to do it apart from one another. I'm the vine and you're the branches, right? You are together in this. We're not working at cross purposes, we're working together. That means we have those around us. I hope we do have those around us that help hold us accountable. That when they see us moving towards the cycle of the vices, that they gently, and sometimes maybe not so gently, say that's not right. And they help us along. We do this with one another. We have an incredible capacity for self-deception. Do you agree with that? I can talk myself into just about anything. And not just that, by the time I'm done doing whatever it is I'm done, I can talk myself into the fact that I was right to do whatever it is I did. And this is found all over Scripture, isn't it? The letter of 1 John comes to mind. And he repeats it more than once. If we say we have no sin, we deceive ourselves. Now, I don't know this for sure, but it seems to me like that if it wasn't possible, he wouldn't have written it. But it seems like it's incredibly possible. And the more I think about my life, and you guys don't have to think about yours that way if you don't want to, but the more I think about my life and the more I think about all of the poor decisions that I've made over my lifetime, which are a bunch, and we don't have that kind of time to talk about all of them, but they're entertaining, some of them. But for all the times I thought, oh no, even when it was done, I'm going, you know what, I think I was right to do that. And what it takes is somebody to go, no, you're not. Right? There's a communal aspect of this. Now, I want to get to this quote because I love this quote. Read it, I don't know how many years ago I read it, but I found it and I've not been able to shake it. But I think it's an absolutely beautiful picture. And it's in his commentary series on John. and it's from N.T. Wright. And though it always hurts, we must be ready for the Father's pruning knife. God is glorified, and so will we be, by bearing good quality fruit and lots of it. For that to happen, there will be extra growth that needs cutting away. That too is an intimate process. This is my favorite line of the whole thing. If you don't like this, I'm sorry. But this final sentence is my favorite one. The vine dresser is never closer to the vine, taking more thought over its long-term health and productivity than when he has the knife in his hand. I'm just going to leave that there for a bit. This idea of a life that's formed like Jesus is not one that we're going to stumble into accidentally. It's just not. And there are things, and we talked about this last week, I'm almost positive, when we talked about Jesus's talk about lust. That if your right eye causes you to sin, to gouge it out and throw it away. If your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off. That sounds painful to me. I don't know if it does to you or not. And if that doesn't sound painful enough for you, you think about Paul saying about crucifying the old man, or Paul saying, I've been crucified with Christ. That's a painful thing. Yes? And so sometimes we have an aversion to that. I mean, I think that's a healthy thing, to have an aversion to pain. Anybody with me? But sometimes it's necessary. And I love this quote. I'm going, God does not inflict pain on us for pain's sake, or what we think of as pain, of getting rid of the vices, right? Cutting these things out of our lives that we think is incredibly painful. That what God is doing is looking at the things that need to be gotten away and gotten from us, and takes more care and is concerned about our long-term health as he cuts away those things. My other favorite example, and I do not have a picture of it. You can Google it if you want to. It's a statue that's I believe it's in St. Peter's Basilica. La Pieta is the name of it. And it's carved from a single block of marble. It is an image of Mary holding her crucified son. It's absolutely breathtaking. I mean, I've just seen pictures of it. I don't know if I never make it to see there and see it in person, but I mean, pictures are enough. And it just amazes me that when you look at the sculpture like that, and that's just one, there's others, but a single block of marble. And the way that this work of art is perfected in it is by cutting away all the things that don't belong. Right? And we think about us as God's masterpiece, and allowing God to cut away the things that don't belong. Right? And when he gets done with it, what he has is someone that looks oddly enough really close to what his son looks like. He'll allow us to cut that stuff away. So, the remedy for this is kind of what we've talked about. The way in which we do this is, first of all, we do it in community with one another. We've talked about that some, not going to beat that to death. But it is with a one another thing. It's not always good. That's not right. It's not always pleasant. It's not always pleasant to be corrected by someone. Does anybody enjoy that? I sure don't, right? Because I'm always right. But it's necessary. Sometimes it's a necessary pain. Now, sometimes we can overdo it and we can inflict more pain than we ought to, right? So we ought to pay attention to that too. But again, that's one of those things we learn in this setting of one another, right? The other one is this one, and there's just no getting out of this one, right? And it is that this means discipline, is what it means. I actually went to look for this, and I couldn't lay my hands directly on it, but I'm just going to kind of give you the broad strokes. This is an illustration that I heard several years ago about this same kind of thing. You guys remember the pilot Sully, right? And the plane, the landing on the Hudson. I'm trying to remember this. I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me, so I'm just trying to work off memory. So you get what you get. All right. Is that one of the things that was asked of him about how did you know what to do? How did you know to do this and to land this plane this way and all the things that you had to do to get that done? He goes, it's because I have rehearsed that over and over and over. It doesn't mean he went out and practiced landing on the Hudson, but he had gone through the scenarios of if this happens, this is what we do. If this happens, this switch gets turned. If this happens, this is what you do. And he goes, the reason that I was able to do this is because I've practiced it. This is a fun one. Okay, good golfers here? Oh, good. We're all honest. Okay. But I love to watch guys that can play and play well. I do. It's amazing to me what these guys can do. But we also know that they didn't walk out. This is not the first time they've had that club in their hand either. Of all of the different things that could possibly come up, they've practiced how we hit the ball this way. The same thing, you just watch this with sports teams, you watch it with all kinds of things. The reason that they know exactly where it is they're supposed to be and what they're supposed to do is because they practiced it. And that's where these kind of things come in, is the disciplines. These are called disciplines, right, for a reason, because we have to, at the beginning, we have to force ourselves to do them. I went, I've got a little time. It's been, I can't remember how many years ago now. Isn't that awful? But I went, Josh took me for Christmas to go to Little Rock and watch the Eagles. Listen to the Eagles. Any Eagles fans? Okay, good. Whew, good, okay. It was the Hotel California tour. And Hotel California came out 50 years ago. So if you didn't feel old yet, you're welcome. And I watched a bunch of guys that are in their 70s play that album from start to finish and didn't miss a note. You can go back and listen to the studio recordings, and you could listen to them on that stage, and it sounds almost identical. And the reason that they do that is because they've played it over and over and over and over and over. They don't even have to think about. They don't have to think about, where do my fingers go on this one? They know exactly what they're doing. That's what we're trying to get at, is that we do these things over and over and over, that we practice the disciplines. Now, the disciplines are not, right, again, they're not ends in themselves. They're moving us towards something else. But these are the ways, and these are some of the things that have just been handed down from Christianity for a long, long time, that we can jump in and we can practice. So I'm going to, as we wrap up here, I think I've got 5. No, I don't. Maybe I could look at my notes and it would tell me. I have some books, and you can Take it or leave it, right? But I have some books that I find helpful, that you might find helpful. I will tell you right now that I have yet to find any of these that I agree with 100%. There's always something, right, that we go, I don't quite see it that way, but we're grown enough folks that we can eat the fish and spit out the bones, right? Right? We can wade through these things and look at it. So here we go. The first one is, I think, probably, I don't know. I don't know if the seminal work is the right term for this, but I think this one here is one that gets referred to over and over and over again. And it's been printed and reprinted, I don't know how many times. And it's called The Celebration of Discipline, and it's written by Richard Foster. In it, he has, I'm trying to remember this, I didn't bring a copy of it with me, but if I remember it, he has individual disciplines, he has corporate disciplines, right? Things like worship, things that we do together, and then there's private disciplines like silence and solitude. Right? Fasting is one of those. But it goes through each one of these. It talks about all of the major spiritual disciplines, what they look like, what it is that they're supposed to do, how you engage them. It's really good. It's very, very good. If in case that one doesn't trip your trigger, The Divine Conspiracy by Dallas Willard. I have yet to pick up a book on spiritual disciplines that does not reference Dallas Willard in some way. He has written extensively on this. The Divine Conspiracy is a really, really good one. It's not easy reading. I'm just going to tell you. He gets fairly deep, and he gets technical in some places, but he's very, very good. And if that one, another one that actually it's listed here is called The Spirit of the Disciplines that he's written, and it's also very, very good. Another one by him is Renovation of the Heart. That's it's another one of those that talks about how it is that we are formed into the character of Christ, and it's very, very good. Again, if you find one that you agree with everything in there, you probably ought to read it again, right? Because a lot of it, there's certain things that we may not agree with, but it's some very, very good stuff, and it's very, very helpful. The last two are these. This one's much more recent. Adele Calhoun's Spiritual Disciplines Handbook. And it's a very, very short read. I say short read. Each discipline is a very short read. She does this very well. Talks about the discipline, talks about the history of it, talks about the practice of it, what is meant to do in our lives, and ways to practice it. And they're usually, each one of these disciplines are like 3 or 4 pages long. And you can read through them, and you can look at it, and you can go, okay, I think this can work in this one. And then the last one that we use is the actual book that we used for this class. It's called Glittering Vices. There are others. There are. These are ones that I have and I've read. I like them, and I think there are others that will probably do just fine. But again, we don't want to get away from the reason that we do. What this does, what practicing the spiritual disciplines does for us, is that it puts us in a position for God to work on us. Okay? I think it's DeYoung who talks about this as in creating space, right? Like creating space for God to work on us. And she also does it this way, which I thought was very, very good. I think I've heard it before, is that she compares this kind of thing to, and she just calls it's heart surgery. Some of you have had to undergo heart surgery. Yes? Or surgery of another kind. Doesn't have to be heart, but now the truth of the matter is, or I hope, if you did, you need to tell me, because that would be a great story, but chances are you didn't do the operating. Right? But you put yourself in the position for someone else to work on you and fix you. Right? And you did everything that you could. They told you not to eat, you didn't eat. Right? And you went when you were supposed to go, but you were pretty much passive in that when it finally came to the operation part. Now, that's where the analogy breaks down a little bit for me, but that's what these do, is they put us in a position for God to work on us. They open us up for God to make the changes that need to be made. And again, it's for our long-term health that we sit still and let God cut away the things that need to be cut, as painful as it may be. Thanks for hanging in there on this series. I know it's been different than some of the things we've done before. Next week, we're going to take a look at Israelite wisdom literature. We're going to start with Proverbs, when it talks about about what it means to live a good life, and the way that these kind of things that we've been talking about tie into what the writer of Proverbs are going to tell us. So we're going to pray, and then we're going to close. Father, we love you, and we thank you so much for who you are, for the fact that you love us and you want more for us than we often want for ourselves. We form attachments to things. Sometimes there's things that aren't good for our overall health. Help us to abide in you, to root out the pride that lays at the bottom of all of these things, and to allow you to cut away the things that need to be cut, to form us into the image of your Son, the one you sent to rescue us. We're thankful for that grace, and we're thankful for your mercy, and we're thankful for the gift of the Spirit that you've given so that we're not trying to do this on our own. Help us to rely on one another and to rely on you and grow ever closer to you. We love you so much. In Jesus' name, amen.